Morbid Metal. This sounds like the name of a cheesy metal band that really wants you to know it's both morbid and metal, so you know exactly what it's about. Just like when you hear early access roguelike, you already know what it is. And the thing is, roguelikes are a dime a dozen right now. People complain about hero shooters, people complain about extraction shooters, but nobody bats an eye at yet another early access roguelike, even though there are more of those than hero and extraction shooters combined. So where does Morbid Metal land? It just released in early access on April 8th, so let's look at what's actually here and whether it's worth your time. Short answer is yes. What actually works? The combat. This is where the game stands out. The combat feels really solid. Outside of Souls-likes, this might be some of the best melee combat out there right now. It has a good sense of impact. It's flashy, it's a little button mashy, but it feels better than most character action games. One of the things I really like is the cooldown system. This might sound like a small thing, but as a big fan of Overwatch, I like having cooldown based abilities that aren't resource driven and instead are something you use strategically. A lot of games mess this up with overly long cooldowns, but here they're short enough that you're using them constantly, which keeps combat engaging. And that ties directly into the game's main mechanic, character switching. You're essentially playing multiple characters that you can swap between instantly with the D-pad. Each one has two abilities, an ult, and a basic attack, all with separate cooldowns. So you're constantly rotating between them to keep abilities flowing, and that creates a really satisfying combat loop. The characters themselves feel different too. Different speeds, different movement, which adds some variety. I don't love the literal switching. I think they could have achieved something similar with one character and rotating abilities, but that's just preference. And overall, the game hits a nice balance. You feel strong, fast, and agile, but if you get reckless, you'll get punished quickly. Performance and bugs. I ran into one real issue. Sometimes when switching characters, my character would just disappear. It happened more than once, but for an early access game, if that's the worst thing showing up, that's a good sign. Quick performance note. I also tested it on the Steam Deck briefly. I didn't spend a ton of time there, but it was running at 60 frames per second and didn't look awful doing it. Where it falls short. The biggest weakness right now is the level design. And to be fair, roguelikes don't usually live or die on level design. That's not typically the focus. But even with that in mind, this feels linear. There's basically no sense of exploration. And visually, it looks good, but it's kind of generic. Nothing really stands out. More variety and more interesting layouts would go a long way in making runs feel less repetitive. The progression also feels underwhelming, both in run and out of run. Part of that is because you already feel strong right away, which isn't a bad thing. It just means the unlocks don't feel that exciting yet. What it is and isn't. If you're here for the story, you should probably go elsewhere. What's here is fine, and it doesn't do a lot of yapping, which I appreciate, but nothing is really carrying the experience. That doesn't seem to be the goal. This is a gameplay-first game. It actually reminds me a bit of Returnal, that high-quality, fast-paced 3D action roguelike feel, just with a focus on melee instead of shooting. Final thoughts. Is this a game you will play for 7,200 hours? Probably not. I know I won't. But I don't value a game or a roguelike for its length. I value quality over quantity. And as a connoisseur of games, I'm not usually looking for an endless time sink. Could you easily get 10 hours of content out of this early access launch alone? I would say yes. And in my book, that makes this an easy recommendation. I will absolutely return to this game as it gets fleshed out further, and I may come back with a follow-up review. If you're here for combat, you'll have a good time. There's room to grow, level design and progression mainly, but the foundation here is strong. With a bit more boldness, this can turn into something really great. As it stands, I highly recommend it.